Well, good morning, everyone. Bit of an interesting time to do one on a Tuesday morning, but yeah, mixed availability for us this week. So just trying to fit in the podcasts when we can. Welcome to the Golden Goal Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm Tom, and I'm joined by my good mate Sam. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate.
How's your
Nice to sort of do it at a different time.
how's your Sky team getting on? What's it been doing?
Yeah, well, sort of out of moves now, and just a bit dead ended, as I've said for a few weeks. So just kind of, I'm back. I'm sort of plodding on now to the end of the season, and just kind of hoping I can give some insight to some of our followers to help those guys sort of finish their season strong. Because as I said, I've really got not too much to play for in Sky. Luckily, Fan Team is still alive for some good cash finish. So I'm still extremely engaged in the fixtures and players and all of that, as that's quite important to my Fan Team side. So yeah, all good. What about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. In fact, I've just flashed up your team on the screen, mate. I see you've got a dodgy looking player in Marcos Alonso there that must be quite annoying. But yeah, feel free to talk through your team, mate, while it's up on the
We just plan
screen.
him from conversation for the whole point of the day. I think me and you will be healthier and happier as a result, and everyone listening who's on him as well will be exactly the same. As you can see, kind of an uninspiring kind of week really for me. Alonso and James, I was really, on that pod last week, I sort of thought there'd be a really good shout as a pick for the Wolves game, and it started exactly that way, didn't it? Got to half time, 0-0, kind of all the numbers looked good, and potential for passing and whatever else was all kind of there amongst the Chelsea back four. And then you send me the message, Alonso's been pinged at half time. Obviously, we're thinking, is it injury? Is it tactical? Looks like he had a bit of a bust up. There's a little bit of footage where he kind of misplaces a pass and decides to have a go at the support staff on the run back, chasing the lost ball, which kind of makes me laugh, like not overly professional. And the rumours are that that's the reason he got hooked at half time and is now done for the season. So cheers, Marcus. Your your behaviour has now meant that you're going to be sat as a dead player in my team for the remainder of the season with no subs. And of course, Wolves came back and scored 2 goals. So not great from that point. Van Dijk just passing tier. That's absolutely fine. Disappointing for Spurs to score, but they played a really, really good tactical game. So no complaints there. Cancelo got me a 20-pointer. Happy days. He's just been such a safe bet all season, hasn't he, Tom Cancelo? Real gem. Like last season, he was rotated a lot more. This season, he's played pretty much every game. I don't even know when you'd have to go back to see when he was last dropped. Disappointing game for Burnley, wasn't it? Going back to Nick Pope, they were like, was it 3? What was the score?
I think
3-0?
they conceded 3, didn't they? I'll just check.
3-1. They scored late, didn't they? They got a late goal. Maxwell Cornet got the goal, but 3-1, like, kind of, yeah. They're not safe yet, though, are they? So I think, Nick Pope's still going to be an okay pick from now to the end of the season. As I've already said on the pod and to you, I feel like a mega haul not a mega haul, but a nice return is still there on the cards for him. So still happy to hold. Wow, look at that midfield, Tom. Look at that midfield. If I could ditch 2 of them, I absolutely would. Madison didn't even show up. Don't know what went on there. Do you have any inside gen on that?
I think I saw a tweet. It was one of the big FPL accounts saying that he has an issue that's being like managed. And from that Sam Martin chap, who seems like the best Leicester insider, I don't think they actually left Rome until about, I think it was Friday afternoon they flew home. So yeah, I mean, they had the game in Rome on Thursday, lost that game, then flew home on Friday, had Saturday to prepare. Yeah, there's just gonna be Leicester rotation everywhere this weekend.
Leave him out to let him recover. But if he is fit and he plays against Norwich, that's actually a really nice fixture. Looking forward. So like I saw that he didn't play, but like whatever. Saka, I thought Saka played well actually. Again, unlucky. We'll say unlucky, but didn't return. But certainly, I still think he's a good hold now to the end of the season. I'm hoping for a typical North London derby as well, where kind of end to end, Both teams need to win, a couple of goals each side. That would suit me really well. Gallagher's fallen off a cliff, but Palace are on the beach, so whatever. 7.3 million just to leave him now to the end of the season. I've got no choice anyway. Salah, a bit of a disappointment. It's kind of looked a bit off the boil for quite a while, really, I think. Kind of got a couple of goals a few weeks ago, didn't he? But I think Mane coming central, like Bin said, been a Liverpool fan. I sort of obviously follow that a little bit more than other teams. But Mane coming central, he looks really wide all the time all of a sudden, Salah. Have you noticed that?
To be completely honest, I've not watched much of Liverpool over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, if you're seeing that, then fair enough. He's certainly gone off the ball a little bit in terms of returns, hasn't he?
Yeah. He's sort of touchline hogger, which usually the best of Salah is to come inside. Obviously, he's still doing it, but he's just taken up. It seems like he's taken up wider positions, and his output's just dropped. Said he's still a world-class player, and who's to say he won't return really nicely moving forward. Tony Little was that an assist, I think. So yeah, 5-point return. Yeah, take that. And then no return from Kane, but North London derby coming up. We know what Kane's capable of there. So yeah, not a great week at all. Dropped a little bit of rank, mainly because I think a lot of people are on kind of double City that have got that opportunity to be on double or triple City, as we'll see with your team in a minute, Tom. So yeah, nothing, not pulling down any trees, but I think it's enough of a side there to push over the line fairly well, and some explosive players in that lineup there that could do really well with some nice fixtures. So that's where I'm at, mate.
Yeah, similar sort of story for me, really. It wasn't I don't think it was a particularly high-scoring game week for anyone, but yeah, I had the same story of Pope in goal. Then I had Cancelo and Laporte at the back. I've pretty much held them, I think, since the second overhaul now. So yeah, Cancelo and Laporte are just doing bits every game for me, really. They're almost at least a consistent 5 points a game when they play.
Yeah.
Then I have Rudiger and Silva as my Chelsea defence. I guess it's the same as you, but I've gone for the safer passing bonus picks, and you've gone for the more explosive Alonso in James. And yeah, in a game that Chelsea conceded 2 goals and didn't really play that well in the second half, Rudiger still got me, 3 points is hardly a return. And then Silva got me a passing bonus as well, so I'm quite content with that. And then I think I mentioned it on the pod last week, that I noticed that Man City had a 3-for-1 over Liverpool. So I thought I was being clever, transferred in Ruben Diaz for his 3 games, started off really well, got himself an assist, and then he was hooked at half-time with a hamstring injury, and now he's out for the season. So yeah,
terrible luck, mate.
Yeah, I'm over it now. I mean, you just got to take it on the chin, haven't you? I feel it was a well-thought-out transfer that just didn't materialise, so... as you can see, I've still got 2 transfers left, and I think there are 2 obvious omissions from my team at the moment. So I need to try and bring in a Spurs player, and I need to try and get a Liverpool defender back in as well. So, my plan's quite simple. I'm just going to do Diaz to Van Dijk. We're recording this on the Tuesday, so I'm going to do Diaz to Van Dijk tonight, and then Ronaldo's going to become Son for, I think it's the North London derbies the next time they play.
Then that'll be your team to the end of the season, mate, which will be really nice. I'm not seeing many weak links in there. Obviously, Chelsea are a bit of a worry. And I said this last week, but like, they're going to find a little bit of rhythm into the FA Cup. Maybe they're not going to. I don't know, but you're stuck with them now. The only thing is they've got some nice fixtures still.
Yeah, exactly.
Same as me. So Leeds is a nice fixture. They've got Watford, I think, as well, haven't they? Last day of the season, is that right? And then someone else crowbarred in between there.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to, because we haven't got many fixtures left, I thought rather than flash up the game week 40 fixtures like I usually do, I just thought I'd plop up the FF stuff fixture grid just so you can see a view of how many fixtures each team has got left. Then I'll just reel off the upcoming fixtures off my phone. So, recording this on the 10th of May. Hopefully it'll come up. We should be able to get this uploaded in HD a couple hours before kick-off. But I mean, tonight's captaincy, you got Villa at home to Liverpool, as you can see there on the 10th. I think that's a really simple decision. I think if Salah plays, and I think Dan Cox has done a captaincy poll this morning as well, and Salah is like well over 80%. So, yeah, I think it's got to be Salah tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. If you're looking to, as we said, he hasn't been huge output, but we know what he can do. I think there's an argument there for Van Dijk. I mean, you just said off air, didn't you? He's been hit and miss with his passing. I think if you're after a chase, I would be maybe sticking that on Van Dijk. I think the Liverpool will return back to, well, they're always solid at the back. I mean, there was Kane and Son wanted a couple of the best on the counter attack. But I think obviously if you're looking just if you're in a position where you're just going to go the majority, which the majority will do, Salah's a good pick or just a safe pick. But I think if you're looking for another Salah off night and then potentially kind of Liverpool clean and maybe a bonus there for Van Dijk, it could be a 20 point, 18 to 20 pointer on offer there, Tom.
Yeah, excuse me. I can't confess to have done a lot of research into the expected Liverpool player minutes, but it doesn't really matter because you get to see the teams. I also think because I think Luis Diaz is counted as a midfielder in Sky. I think if he plays tonight, as a really odd differential captain, Liverpool have a single game day tonight, so you could quite easily chain him off to a Liverpool player. To a Man City player or someone like that straight away. So, I mean, if you've got a surplus of transfers and Luis Diaz plays, I don't hate the thought of bringing him in tonight, giving him the armband, and then moving him on to someone else. Obviously, it means you don't have Salah, but if you did it in complement to already owning Salah, so you reduce your exposure, that's probably quite a tidy move, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe,
I even think even if Jota comes in and starts, he hasn't been great for Liverpool recently, but he just has a knack of popping up and scoring goals. And yeah, same sort of thing. If you're willing to have him for a game and then just chain him on to someone else, it could be another little differential. Is there anyone from Villa you would fancy, Tom? They're worth talking about? Buendia's sort of returned a little bit recently.
He has, and
Watkins has.
Whenever I talk about Liverpool and Villa, I always cast my mind back to the thrashing that you got against them, where they just completely exposed your high line. I mean, there's obviously Tottenham sort of managed it at the weekend. So yeah, you'd probably fancy one of those strikers that could get him behind, but I honestly don't see it myself. I think it's a Liverpool win all over, to be honest.
They haven't actually got. I mean, the next four are kind of a mixed bag, aren't they? They've got Liverpool and City, which are obviously the two best teams in the league. Crowbarred in there with a Burnley team that are fighting for their lives, but not looking fantastic. And Palace are on the beach, so some teams have got one game, for example, one or two games. If you wanted to punt on a Watkins or Buendia or Danny Ings, even who's just been back in the goals a little bit recently, I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea. But as you said, returns versus City and Liverpool, are they likely? Probably not as likely as they are with Palace and Burnley.
Yeah, so just looking at fixtures, Villa have a 4-2 over, looking at it, West Ham. They've got a 4-1 over Man United, 4-2 over Brighton, 4-2s over Brentford, and a 4-2 over Newcastle and Southampton, by the looks of it. There's probably more that I haven't read off. I imagine Bowen might have a few owners, so I certainly wouldn't hate a Bowen to Coutinho transfer for a 4-2, but it's just whether you want to be using your final transfers on that sort of move, really. I mean, there are gains to be made, but it's just whether you think they'll materialise, really.
Coutinho didn't start the last game, no. And Bowen's been on the bit of an assist. He's still putting an output. I think he'll suit the Man City game actually, similar to a Son and a Kane style thing. I think
he tends to show up in those more difficult games, doesn't he?
Yeah, and the back four that they're going to be knocking out Man City. So if I had Jared Bowen, I'd be pretty intent to hold. I would be inclined, to hold Jared Bowen. It's a shame because I had him a few weeks ago for a little run, and he was just really poor, and got rid of him. And on typical kind of sod's law, he just started returning after I got rid of him, which is a bit of a shame.
And then just looking at the 11th of May on my phone, we've got Leeds at home to Chelsea, Watford at home to Everton, Leicester at home to Norwich, and Wolves at home to Man City. So yeah, the kickoff time for the Leeds game is 7:30, and then the Wolves City game kicks off at 8:15. So at 7:15, there'll be a 15-minute window where you can have a look at your team, check the Man City lineup before the deadline. So I mean, I'll just stick it on Cancelo, and I expect him to start, given, like you said, Diaz is injured, Walker is injured, Stones is injured. City are pretty makeshift at the back, so Cancelo's got to play every game. So yeah,
So
I just have it on Cancelo.
I do, and I think this is a night, Tom. If you wanted to look at kind of going against the crowd, there's a couple of good options here. I still think if Reece James starts at Leeds, that's a good shout. I know they're not been very good, but the upside of someone like Reece James is quite high, isn't it? So it's always there in the mind. I completely get it if people say to me now, foolish decision.
So the Chelsea, whoever plays left wing back for Chelsea, right? God knows who it's going to be. But Reece James will be up against Junior Firpo, who I think is probably even worse defensively than someone like Marcos Alonso, right? I think he is genuinely one of the worst fullbacks I've ever seen in the league. So him against Reece James,
very complimentary that, Tom, from you.
Yeah, I think he's horrendous. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, so and we know what Reece James is capable of. I also think there's a Richarlison versus Watford shout there. Old club. Richarlison, we know what he's like as an individual, and Everton needing still goals and points to secure survival.
Yeah, Watford are already down, aren't they? And well, I mean, fair enough, they respect him, but I didn't like the sort of mentality of Roy Hodgson at the end of that game. I think he actually applauded the Crystal Palace fans more than his own. It was a bit weird. Yeah. So, I mean, God knows what sort of impact that will have in the Watford dressing room. They'll probably just... Can you imagine a more beached team than Watford at the moment?
Exactly. Ben Foster was their best player by a mile, wasn't he, in the 1-0 loss to Palace? If it wasn't for the penalty, they might have come away with a point, but obviously that's no good now. I think looking at the Leicester one as well, Tom, I think there's going to be ample options if someone wanted a one-game punt. Just look at whoever starts up front. Norwich are done, aren't they? They're down, but they're done in terms of actually any performances as well by the looks of the 4-0 West Ham drubbing. Daka, Vardy, Maddison, whoever starts really, and you like the look of, it could be a one-game punt and captain there, couldn't it?
Yeah, I can't argue with what you said at all. Like I said, I'm in a position where I'm just consolidating really, so it'd be an easy one on Cancelo for me. But I mean, if you're chasing, you've named a good load of players there. They're very favourable fixtures, aren't they?
Yeah, and then obviously, like you said, City, KDB, Laporte, Cancelo. They're both going to start, aren't they? So they're all good options.
And then just looking at the 12th of May, we've got, well, as a neutral, unfortunately, I'll be training at this time, so I won't be able to watch the game. But yeah, this is going to be hopefully a good spectacle for neutrals as well as the fans themselves. On Thursday the 12th, we got Spurs at home to Arsenal, basically in a 6-pointer for 4th place. I mean, there's ample options in this game, to be completely honest. Obviously, Kane, Son and Saka, really highly owned in Sky. And whilst, Kane and Son, obviously the better players, I wouldn't doubt Saka to get a return in this game either. But I think the way my team will have to be set up, I have to buy Heung-min Son. So I'll just be on Son as captain.
Yeah, I'll be on Kane because I've got Kane in my side. But my second team, I'll be on Son. But I think if you've just got Saka or something like that, that's a great shout to put Saka in. I'm expecting kind of sort of 2-2, something like that. I'm expecting a few goals either side. I said, same as you. I echo your thoughts, Tom. Really looking forward to the game itself. So, Kane, Son and Saka are all good options.
And then I'll quickly rattle through the Gameweek 40 fixtures. So Sunday, 15th of May, we got Spurs, Burnley, Wolves, Norwich, West Ham, Man City, Watford, Leicester, Leeds, Brighton, Villa, Palace and Everton, Brentford. With Spurs Burnley being the early kickoff at 12. The game week 40 actually starts on Sunday, which is a bit interesting. Don't think there are any games on the Saturday because of the cup final. But to be completely honest, I think they mentioned it on the 3-for-1 pod as well. I do see Cancelo as an option, but given City's weakness at the back in West Ham's ability to, match up well against the big sides, I think a Spurs player, in my opinion, is probably the best captain on that day.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So I'll probably be captaining a Spurs player. But anyone else looking big to you?
Not really, no. If I'm honest.
I don't hate. Well, you won't be able to see the teams for Leicester, so you don't know if Maddison plays, but you'd fancy them. Always fancy them against Watford, and the same with the same explanation you gave for Norwich. They're already down on the beach. It's a good opportunity, but you just don't know who's going to play.
No, I think Spurs asset. Um, Spurs asset there for sure.
And then Monday the 16th, got a single game day. Newcastle at home to Arsenal. My one Newcastle. My one player in this fixture is Saka. So as long as he plays, even if he doesn't play, I'll probably captain him because I won't have any transfers left and just hope he comes off the bench. So Saka for me.
Yeah, identical for me, mate. Totally the same. I'll be on Saka because that's all I've got.
Tuesday 17th, we've got Southampton at home to Liverpool. Salah or Van Dijk for me. We'll see how the game goes against Villa, really. That might shift my opinion on Salah or not, to be honest.
Yeah, just see who... we'll get to see the lineups, won't we? To see who starts and then just see who you've got. Again, I think it's going to be a lot of that going on. I've only got whoever. I've got no moves left, or I've got one more, but I don't want to use it for this. So, it's going to be a lot of that. So, yeah, whoever you've got from there.
Excuse me. And then Thursday, the 19th of May, we've got Everton at home. So we see the lineups for all these games. We've got Everton at home to Palace, Chelsea at home to Leicester, and Villa at home to Burnley. So for me, I'll just pick whichever of my Thiago Silva, Rudiger double-up plays. They've got the cup final on Saturday, haven't they?
Yeah.
But I don't think Saturday, Thursday will mean players are due a rest. So, yeah, we'll just see. I'll probably just
especially
go
when
for
it's
whoever plays.
Second to final game of the season for them as well, Tom. So, for me, it'll just be I've got Maddison, haven't I? So it'd be like whoever starts out those. Because if Alonso's already, by the sounds of it, done. So it's whether Reece James starts. If Reece James doesn't start and Maddison does, then I'll stick it on Maddison. Again, Richarlison might be a shout here if you kind of own. Or if you're on like a Watkins, Buendia kind of thing we talked about a minute ago, then one of those versus Burnley might be a good shout. Oh, yeah, I will have Nick Pope, actually. So, again, if none of my Chelsea or Leicester players start, then I'll just stick the armband on Pope. So, as long as I'm hopefully covered that night, then I'll be happy with that. You never know, mate. Pope could actually end up being the best captain of the night. Like, that could be the one where he comes up with saves bonus, clean sheet, and like man of the match performance or something. He's done it before, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Single match day.
Exactly.
Well, I know there's a few games, but sort of, could be the match day king there, couldn't he?
And then just looking at some of the questions we have, I only managed, because we've recorded this in the morning, I've only managed to get a couple of the questions in. But our good friend, FPL Spartans, I'm afraid you didn't get on the screen, mate, because you asked your question as I hit record. But FPL Spartans asked probably the key question that no one really knows the answer to. He's asked, which of Son or Kane scores the most, in your opinion, for the remaining games? I really don't know. I think between Son and Kane at the moment, you have to flip a coin, especially in Sky, because they are in the same position. Whereas in like FPL and Fan Team, Son is a midfielder and Kane is a striker. So you'd always favour the midfielder over the striker, but
you would. My thought process is starting to change on Son. I've not owned Son all season. And it's just like he's scored more points than Kane this season. He's proved himself every year. I think if it was, do you think, Tom, if it wasn't for penalties with Harry Kane, that they'd be a lot more of an even asset in people's minds?
I also think it also feels like the Man of the Match award in the Sky. Not that people should consider that because it's a bit of a broken system, but it does tend to favour Harry Kane. He's a bit of a darling for that. And I suppose, well, he doesn't really get bonus, does he? You can't say that, but I just suppose because he's a bit more creative as well. That's another positive that Kane's got going for him. I just need to plug in my Mac a second, so carry on.
Yeah, so answering the question, I'm going to go with Son as the higher point scorer towards the end of the season. I just think the Arsenal game is really going to suit Son to maybe get a goal or a couple of goals, something like that. And then I know he likes a goal against Burnley as well. I know He scored. Did he score the one goal last season, or was it Kane? And one of them assisted each other anyway in a 1-0. And then he got that ridiculous goal 2 seasons ago, wasn't it? When he ran it from the halfway line and sort of dribbled all the way. So I'm just going to go with Son to outscore Kane to the end of the season, just purely on form as well. I know Kane's been good, but Son's just been brilliant recently. And I think anyone that's had Son in their team in any format has really sort of had some nice, decent rank rises. So Son for me.
Yeah, fair enough. Ian Parrin, he asks, with most of the 20 highest owned players having a potential 3 games during the 7 remaining match days, and he's just pointed out Richarlison has a bit more with 4. And then he's just asked us, how many points over those 3/4 games would you classify as excellent, good, adequate, or poor?
I think Ian's having an extremely good season. He's saw him at like 21st on the leaderboard the other day. He's sort of really shot up. I know that Ian loves to keep his transfers till late, and it's obviously paid dividends. So massive.
Shout out to Ian, man. What a season he's had. Yeah,
he's really come up trumps. And as I saw him put on a post the other day, it's a game of patience, and he's absolutely right there. There's me sat with nothing left and not a lot to play for, and Ian's been smashing it. So fair play. So 3 games, Tom. Excellent. I'm thinking it's got to be 30 to 30 plus, or just 30 and then above it would be an excellent return, right?
Yeah, I'd probably say I'd say 7 points a game minimum to class you as excellent. Like that's a clean sheet or a goal every game, isn't it?
I would say that's good, mate. That's where my thinking would go.
Fair
I'd say 24 to 30 would be good. No, 24 would be good. 24 and above to 24 plus. Or 25 plus, something like that is excellent. But mate, you go with, we don't have to have the same answer.
No, exactly. That's the whole point. Yeah, I mean, I think if you get 7 points in a game, that means your players either returned a clean sheet or a goal. Good, I'd say, is around 5 points a game, maybe a bonus. And adequate, a couple of blanks, maybe a bit of bonus. And then poor is just blanking every game, isn't it? That would be my view anyway, just based on, yeah.
So I'd say, for me, I'd go 7... They cross each other. So striker goal and shots bonus at 9 or 10, excellent.
Clean, fair enough. Yeah, I'm leaning that way now too. Yeah,
plus
fair enough.
Any passing bonus or tackle bonus, excellent. So 9 plus point return, excellent. 5 to 7 points, good. Adequate, like where you get like Rudiger or Thiago.
Anything above 2, isn't it? Yeah.
And then poor is just so 6 points over 3, Ian poor. Adequate would be 3 to 4 each game. So 4, 8, 12, 9 to 12 points. Good would be 20 to 24, something like that, or 24 judged off what I've just said. And then excellent would be 30 plus.
Yeah, I'd be more inclined to agree with that now. Thinking back, yeah, I think that's absolutely my
answer. I only go off gut there, Tom, because when I see like Cancelo or one of my premium defenders only get 7,
you'd be disappointed, wouldn't you?
I'm always that little bit like, oh, that could have just been a 9 or a 10 pointer. So I'm just being greedy, mate, and that's why I class those like that.
Yeah, can't argue with that. And then hopefully that answers your question nicely, Ian. And then finally, we've got Mitch. Oh, poor Mitch. He sounds like he's in a bit of a tricky situation here. So he's got one transfer left, and he's got a decision. So he can either move Werner to Kane or Alonso to another. Well, he's got 9.7 in the bank by the sounds of it. And I just asked him, you can't see it on the screen, but I just asked him a confirmation question. I just wanted to check whether he already owned a Spurs player. And it doesn't sound like he does, but he's got Saka. But based on the fact that we saw that game day where Spurs play first and potentially wanted to captain a Spurs player for that game, even still, this poor Mitch, I think this is a really difficult decision. Because Alonso, we're pretty sure he's not going to play again. Timo Werner probably will play again, but is he going to return? Who knows? I think it's a really tricky one. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think if he's covered for those Chelsea games with other captains, so if he goes through and has a look and he's like, I don't really class Werner as coverage, but maybe going back and looking at how many games he started, because going back to Ian's point, there's coverage there, but it could probably come in the adequate and poor region for Werner most of the time. So maybe if he's got someone else in there or another team that Chelsea play that he's confident on captaining, then I would be inclined to go with Kane for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's a decision that you need to make based on the available captaincies that you have, because like we said, there are a couple of occasions where you could well captain a Chelsea player. So if Alonso's your only Chelsea, then you should probably move him on to another Chelsea maybe. But if you've already got Chelsea, the Kane transfer is probably the way to go, I would say.
Oh, he's got plum fixtures there, mate. He's got Arsenal, Burnley, and Norwich. Kane. I think Conte is going to be pushing right to the end of the season for top four, depending on what happens against Arsenal. I genuinely feel that Kane, there's in Ian Parrin's question, there's excellent on the table there for Kane. When you add in as well the fact that you could captain him probably multiple times, there's a case that he'd be captained all 3 games there, because every game is going to be last game of the season. Every game, the final game, is going to be everyone playing at once, isn't it? I mean, a fixture versus Norwich with a game that Spurs particularly need to win, you'd put the armband on Harry Kane final day, wouldn't you? So I think that's actually a no-brainer that the person that's going to get the highest returns there for that transfer, or potential highest returns, would be Harry Kane or a Son.
There's your answer, Mitch. I agree with Sam. I can't really add any more to that. Excellent answer, mate. And yeah, please don't. It doesn't sound like you are, but yeah, Alonso is just unlucky. Like you've had your transfers planned out well. You've left yourself a single transfer at this stage of the season, which to me seems fine. A lot of managers in your position. Same with me with Diaz, right? We made a transfer and it's just been unlucky. Yeah, you can't say any more than that, really.
So I meant to say Mitch isn't an idiot. Alonso is an idiot for his behaviour, but Alonso is one of those high-risk, high-reward players. And when I transferred him in all my teams, I knew the possibility of being dropping a clanger. But as Late Riser says, you've got to be in that position to make, you've got to put yourself in that lucky position. And with Alonso, it works both ways. You can get that 20-point haul, or you can get the drop a clanger, fall out with your manager, and then not play again for the season. I'll be glad to never own Marcos Alonso again, I think, as rumours he's going to move abroad for next season. So good riddance, and I'm sure Ben Chilwell will be back in next season.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting what happens next season. And quickly, I mean, we were talking about it a little bit before we hit record, but just in terms of like how we think how we want the game to shape up next season, etc. I mean, I'll just flash you my team at the moment. So I don't think it's fair that I should be able to pick a team with this like high quality premium players. So I've managed to fit in what I can fit in. I can fit in Salah and Kane, the 2 best strikers in the game. My midfielders are reasonably cheap, but still do reasonably well. Then I've got defence of Cancelo, Laporte, Rudiger, Silva, Diaz. And those are 5 absolute premium defenders. I think all of these premium defenders should be priced comparatively with the premium strikers next season. Like I'd be expecting to see Cancelo well over 11 million. Same with Laporte, same with Diaz. I know Rudiger's not going to be around at Chelsea, but Silva should be a £10 million player. We really need to see some of these defenders increase in price, I think, to really give us some decisions to make on those premium assets.
Yeah, it's been floating around the Twitter community recently, hasn't it? And I think with the way that teams set up now, especially City, Liverpool, Conte coming in with Spurs, Chelsea, the use of the wing backs and the defenders in attacking is so high that they have the opportunity to haul very similar to the attacking players, because a clean sheet, a passing tier, and an assist or a goal is the equivalent of nearly probably like two goals and shots bonus for Kane or Salah, isn't it? So their floor is equally as high, and I think the price now has to match that. The game's changed, isn't it? At one point, it was the defenders are great for like 10 points, so the equivalent of a goal and shots bonus for Kane or Salah. But now they have all the routes to points via the cleans and the passing bonus, but they've got the attacking output as well for assists and goals. So I think that needs to be taken into account for next season.
Yeah, I think someone whose opinion I value highly, James from Planet FPL, and I think he said it a few times this season. Although I think Salah's total points are slightly more than Cancelo's at the moment. He thinks, I've quoted him saying that Cancelo is actually a better asset in Sky than Salah is, just because of the routes to points that he has. And I don't know if this is true because I can't claim to be an expert on the XG numbers, etc. But it almost feels, certainly on the eye test anyway, it feels to me that Cancelo has underperformed against the attacking returns he could have had. Like he is everywhere in most games, like getting involved in everything, and his attacking returns, I've definitely got less than Trent, hasn't he, for example? But I feel like he should be right up there with Trent for what he delivers in every game.
Just looking at the total points, and Salah's underpriced at 11.9, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
And he's got 291 points. Cancelo's 9.5 and has 281 points. He's 10 points
ridiculous,
behind.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Laporte, who I feel like hasn't even played all season, that's what it feels like. It's 253. He's had 4 goals, Laporte. So when we're talking about sort of attacking returns, yeah, it's not up with Salah, but on top of bonuses and all that sort of stuff, and clean sheets, it makes such a difference. He started 30 games, Laporte.
And they're under 10 million. Their price begins with a 9. It's just mental that they're so cheap. But looking back to the start of the season, I mean, did you think the Cancelo price was fair? I mean, I almost... It's a tricky one, isn't it? I think he should have been more, but 9.5 seemed almost quite a sensible price for how much we thought he played. I guess that's the point of the fixed price game that Sky is, isn't it? Once a player starts playing really well, their price is fixed, isn't it?
Yeah. Right, Tom, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So I've got the 11 top scoring players on the game so far. I know the season hasn't finished. How many of them are defensive assets? So either, defenders or a goalkeeper.
So
out of the 11.
How many? 11, I'd say 8 or 9.
Bang on, mate. 9 of 11 are defensive assets. So the only 2 that aren't are Salah and Son,
yeah, thought so.
And the rest are all defensive assets. So Robertson down at 11, Matip down at 10. He's gone under the radar all season. Diaz, Edison, Trent, Alisson, Van Dijk, Laporte, Cancelo.
It's insane,
in that order. So if that's not a rationale for where points come from, and the prices of next season, then I don't know what is. And I imagine that won't change too much towards the end of the season.
Nah, definitely not.
I just think with Sky as well, like I don't know, everyone's different, but I do think getting rid of one overhaul would be a good idea.
I think, this is my opinion anyway. I think the second overhaul they do is a complete waste of time, really, because it just means everyone will have the same team afterwards. But I do think if they kept this second overhaul, but at the second overhaul they adjusted the players' prices, I think those 2 in hand would be acceptable. But the fact that we have a second overhaul with no price changes throughout the whole season, I mean, the only player after that second overhaul that was a gem afterwards is Jacob Ramsey. And even then, I think half the players had him. Other than that, we all knew who the best assets were.
Or move the one overhaul to like middle of the season, so you don't get it after the first 4 game weeks, but you don't get it as late as the second one. You make it like December or something, December or January. And that's going to be a lot more challenging for people because they'll have to pick a team for a bit more longevity, and they'll have to use a transfer to move in those budget enablers that appear in the first 4 weeks, rather than all of us discussing it on all these pods and going, right,
whack him in after
there's going to be X, Y, and Z from Fulham. There's going to be this lad from here, and you've got 3 or 4, and then you just pack the premiums, and that's where the engaged managers make their big step ups. But there's so many people on these pods watching these things now that it's just so difficult. So like we all see it. Whereas if we had to use transfers to make that happen, so me and you, let's say for example, we pick up a couple of decent budget enablers within the first 4 or 5 weeks, we actually have to make a move to get rid of someone else to bring them in. And then even if you want to bring in another premium player as a result of that, you still have to make another move again instead of just complete reset at game week 4.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And
I'm not saying that's right or wrong, Tom. I'm just throwing out the sort of a couple of potential routes.
Nothing to do with Sky. I think one thing that will make the game interesting next season is Haaland signing for Man City as well, because it gives.
Yeah.
I didn't actually play the game when Aguero was an option. I started playing a couple years ago when I think Aguero played like less than 10 games. But I can't imagine how interesting the game might have been when there was a Man City striking option as well. That means you don't have to captain Cancelo every game. Because, I don't know how good Haaland's going to be exactly. We all know he's a great player. But is he going to outscore the likes of Cancelo, etc.? I think it's close. So, we'll just have to see.
Did you see Liam Dorian sort of say he'd still probably go with, you're so consistent, aren't they, those defensive assets, going back to the point we made a few minutes ago. But I think Haaland does have the ability to go off like Sergio Aguero went off. And as you said, that's another point of maybe not having the overhaul after 4 weeks, because are we going to go with Haaland from the start? If Haaland starts to bang and everyone's like getting on him, you then got to make a move, taking another premium out to get him in. It just makes that game a little bit more interesting. So I think a few of those changes masked with Haaland coming in could hopefully split things up a little bit next season. But I thought that was going to happen this season with Ronaldo and Lukaku coming in, but it kind of didn't happen, did it?
Lukaku didn't light the world up, but I don't know. I never believed in Lukaku anyway, to be honest, having seen him as a United player. Ronaldo, he hasn't lit the world up. He's not done too badly.
Pretty good season, though.
But he plays for Man United, which is why he's not the Golden Boot winner. I think if he stuck him in the Man City team, he'd win the Golden Boot. But for Haaland, he's a Ronaldo level striker, right? I know Ronaldo and Haaland are probably at a pretty similar level now. And he plays for Man City, who just create tons and tons of chances every game. So really interesting to see how he does. I saw some stats on Twitter just about like his, I can't remember who they compared him to now. It was another Premier League striker. I think it was like Richarlison or something. Just for a comparison to like your average Premier League striker, and the amount of tracking back and like work rate that Haaland puts in off the ball is very, very low. Like he really just focuses on the scoring. So it'd be interesting to see how that works in the Man City team, because they don't play with a centre forward at the moment.
Yeah, unless Pep changes it again, because Pep likes hard-working players, doesn't he? You see how much like sort of the best teams in the world, Man City, win that ball back so high because of the work rate of every player on that pitch. It's going to be interesting, mate. I'm sure we're going to discuss it all pre-season and all that as we build to our game week 1 teams.
Oh, and there's Mitrovic as well, who's obviously lit the world up in the Championship, even better than he's ever done before. But are we going to pick him? I don't know. We'll see how much he is, I think.
And see how the fixtures fall.
All right, mate. I think that clears it off now. We'll chat a bit more about next season in the next pod maybe, but I think for now that wraps us up. Hopefully everyone enjoyed that. Nice. And as usual, thanks to everyone, Ian and Mitch and Spartans, for asking all your questions. And we'll catch you next week for It's unbelievable, isn't it? The final week in Sky. We'll probably keep a track of the leaderboard as well and see how our good mate Dave Perrins is doing as well, because he's right up there.
Yeah, I'm sort of rooting for Dave now. I think, lots of the Sky community are that obviously are not in an opportunity to win it. All-round great guy, and he's in a really, really strong position by the look of the leaderboard. So, fingers crossed for Dave that he gets the win.
Nice one. All right, we'll catch you all later.
Next week, guys.
Cheers.